Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Senator Sean Ryan. I'm the co-chair of the Economic Development Subcommittee. I'm honored to co-chair this subcommittee with my colleague, Assemblymember Al Sturpey. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the following members of the subcommittee, all of whom aren't with us today. We have Senator Joe Addabbo, Senator James Sanders, Senator Andrew Gennardis, Senator Jeremy Cooney, Senator Dean Murray, and Senator George Borrello. I'll now turn it over to my co-chair, Al Sturpey, who will give opening remarks and introduce Assembly members.
Thank you, Sean. We got that? Okay, there we go. Thank you, Sean. I'll first introduce the members. On the Assembly side, first I have Assembly Member Gary Pretlow, Assembly Member Kerry Warner, Assembly Member Stephen Otis, Assembly Member Dana Levenberg, Assembly Member Christopher Friend, and Assembly Member Sam Perazzolo. I'd just like to say that as far as the economic development portion of the budget, there are some great ideas in here that try to leverage our new position, things like semiconductor manufacturing, AI, etc. I think the only issue is how do these all work, who's going to be involved in them, and how are they going to be run. So I look forward as we go through the process of trying to sort of open up behind the curtain and find out the actual inner workings of some of these programs. Is anyone else on this side?
No, before we go, we have to designate the secretary. So the Assembly and the Senate each need to designate a recording secretary for the purpose of taking minutes.
I designate Deborah Jenkins.
And I designate Sarah Lesser.
Okay.
So the following agencies are announced to be at the table: the Department of Economic Development, the Urban Development Corporation, the Division of Tax Appeals, the Department of Taxation and Finance, and the New York State Gaming Commission. So I'm proud that the Senate, one house, restores funding for the Centers for Excellence, the Centers for Advanced Technology. It provides funding for Small Business Incubator and the Business Incubator Association of New York, and it funds a variety of other programs that will grow the innovation economy. To that end, I hope we see funding for another program that promotes innovation, and that's the New York First program, which stands for New York Fund for Innovation in Research and Scientific Talent. We hope that's in the final budget. The Senate One House also puts forward language designated to increase the transparency and accountability of a variety of the economic development programs. We are looking to have ESD move towards developing performance-based metrics and deliverable, measurable outcomes for the state-funded programs. Is there any additional statements from the Senate side? Senator Borrello. It comes on by itself.
It does? It's not
it does.
All right, thank you. I trust you. Thank you, Senator Ryan. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Republican Conference and obviously the importance of economic development. New York State has the third largest GDP in the nation. It is an international force economically. We have amazing natural resources, a good workforce, and we're the financial center of the world. Yet despite that, we have to spend billions and billions of dollars every year to keep companies from leaving and from begging them to come to New York State. It's largely because of bad policies. Most CEOs right now, 67% of upstate New York CEOs say business conditions are getting worse. This is a tough situation to be in. But probably the biggest challenge, the biggest threat to economic development in the coming years is going to be the collision course of the CLCPA and those climate goals and the ability for New Yorkers to be able to heat their homes, for businesses to be able to do the basic job of manufacturing. This is going to be an issue. It's going to be a challenge. And ultimately, it's going to drive more businesses out of New York State, which means we're going to have to spend billions more to try to keep them here. But ultimately, that's going to be, I think, a failed process. We have to worry about things like Micron Technologies and Global Foundries that are going to have huge electrical needs. How are we going to meet that with declining electrical capacity in New York State? These are all the challenges that I see. Some of the other things that are disappointing in this budget are the fact that we have still not addressed the unemployment insurance debt, the UI debt that every single business in New York State is paying, the maximum rates, and ultimately they're paying off billions of dollars in debt that New York State incurred on their behalf by draining that unemployment insurance fund. With all that being said, there are some positives in this budget. I do agree that the small business incubators are important. I do believe that that many of us here would like to do what we can to prop up, particularly our small businesses. But we are truly on a collision course with these broader goals, and that is I think the problem that we face, the challenge that we face. I hope that in this budget, in the final adopted budget, we will address some of the things that I brought up. But ultimately, New York State's biggest challenge is, unfortunately, its own government. So with that, I will yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Borrello, for your always optimistic outlook. Any other senators want to join in? If not, I'll hand it over to my co-chair, Assemblymember Sturpey. Assemblymember Sturpey.
Everybody here? Okay, Chair. It's already on.
Is it on? All right. Thank you, Chairman. I, too, am excited to be moving this budget forward. There are many good things related to economic development and small businesses and racing in this budget. I want to just highlight a few things that, as chair of the Small Business Committee, I'm particularly interested in. I am excited about the support that this budget represents for entrepreneurial ventures through a venture innovation fund targeted at startups led by women and minority CEOs, groups of people who have traditionally not had access to venture capital money, through additional incubators, hotspots, centers of excellence, and specifically a new satellite Center of Excellence for Food Production that builds on the tremendous success that the Geneva Station that Cornell University has had in fostering food production businesses. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, as Senator Borrello said, our small businesses still labor under the extensive UI debt that remains from the pandemic year. And if we hope to have, I hope these businesses will grow into larger businesses, this is something we have to do. And I'll just end my remarks by talking about how important workforce development is, and this budget makes significant investments, as it has every year, in workforce development. And that's really important, that we build out a pipeline of skilled workers, but equally important is the need for accountability so that we know that the significant investments that we're making are yielding results. And with that, I'm going to end my remarks, and I look forward to working with my colleagues as we put this budget together. Thank you.
Steve?
I'll just say briefly, there's many exciting things going on here. I chair the Assembly Committee on Science and Technology, and we've made great gains. We're here with Al Sturpey and the home of Micron, which is a big success. And I think one of the things that we're looking forward to is learning more about the governor's initiative on AI, which I think in some ways is trying to follow the success of Micron, where we won a national competition for that work to be a leader in the nation on AI. So there are good things here. I think we're going forward in very exciting areas in the technology space, and looking forward to getting good stuff done in this budget. Thank you, Al.
Anybody else? Mr. Friend?
Thank you, Chair Sturpey and Chair Ryan. I'd just like to say we're coming out of COVID, and we're seeing still massive issues with the supply chain, with inflation. Just in the last 3 years, CPI is rated at 19%. These are very difficult things for our small businesses to deal with, as well as all the residents of New York State. I'm just going to reference a few of the issues that not necessarily included in the budget, but we need to address if we want to really impact economic development within New York State. First, I'll bring up the school bus mandate. Just within my district, my home school, Horsehead Central School District, just to bring in the electric line is going to cost the school district $10 million. That is not something that would be reimbursable currently by the state, since they just recently redid their bus garage and repaved that entire parking lot. Not to mention, they were doing a cost sharing with a local school district, Meyer Heights, and with this new plan to go with all electric, they're not going to be able to do that any longer. They're going to both have to have separate garages just to be able to meet the space requirements for the new buses. So this is something that we really need to address going forward, maybe not in this budget, but before the end of the year, with the mandate looking forward at 2027, some of those bus manufacturers that are producing diesel fleets are already looking at converting to an electric fleet. And if we don't have all this in place by then, the cost may go up already. Another big issue that we need to be addressing that's already been brought up is Micron. What an opportunity we have here in New York State to capitalize on the largest semiconductor in the nation, possibly in the world. Unfortunately, we've already been playing a little bit of quid pro quo, bringing them in by saying, all right, come into our state, we'll allow you to have a gas line to be able to produce the energy that you need to produce those semiconductors, but the rest of the state, that's not going to be the case. And why do I bring that up? Because in Yates County, there have been some subsidiary producers that need energy that have been told that they won't be able to have the gas line going into the future, and therefore they're not going to be able to stay within this state, so they've already moved out and they're looking elsewhere. This is very short-sighted on our part. If we want to give that to Micron, we need to provide the energy resources to other companies also, and whether that's going to be gas, nuclear, something that's going to be dependable 24/7 for these high-intensive energy production. And the last big issue that I want to bring up that is impacting the entire state are the illegal marijuana shops all across the state. And it's very timely. We just saw over the weekend that an illegal smoke shop sold fentanyl-laced marijuana. We've seen the retaliation from the administration going after somebody who is legally producing marijuana, and this person came in, within OCM, came after that legal producer and said, your product is not what you said it was, you have to take it off the shelves and have to stockpile all that, you can't sell it. This brings up the whole regulatory issue within our state. We don't allow our locals to control what's happening in their backyard, and at the same time, that regulator is applying massive pressure on the legal industry within the state. Just since 2022, in New York City, there's been 46,000 cannabis inspections, 17,000 summonses, and $18 million in fines. That's just in New York City. In my district, these illegal shops have been shut down, hundreds of thousands of dollars collected, equipment for making gummies and edibles collected, and they're back up and running the very next day. Just this year in January, I had a student come and visit me, and she was dumbfounded. She's a high school student. She was dumbfounded that kids were smoking marijuana within the school, vaping marijuana within the school, and that is completely opposite of what our law states. But yet the teachers, the administration, nobody does anything. How are we going to encourage businesses to set up within our state when we're not enforcing the laws and allowing the locals to do exactly that? So between 2011 and 2023, manufacturing increased nationwide by 1.3 million jobs. Unfortunately, within New York State in that same time frame, we lost 26,000 jobs. We need to correct these outflows, and we can do that by changing the regulations and transparency within the way we do our regulation of these businesses. And I appreciate some of the changes that the Senate has made for putting more regulation and oversight on the governor's proposals. I hope that those stay and we can continue to have greater oversight going forward. Thank you for the time.
Sure. You want anything? Go ahead.
Good evening. I would like to thank the chairs for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the minority. I would like to, as much as I can say, I'm very happy about the investment we're doing in AI and like the microchips and all of that. I'd like to remind New York State how we got here, which was through the hard work of small business people. And when I talk about small business people, I'm not talking about corporations of 100 or 200. I'm talking about corporations with maybe less than 25 people. You can probably walk down any main street in New York City or New York State, and I would say a majority of those businesses are operated by families, mom and pop shops, and people who are just small business owners, very micro small business owners, if you will. I was very disheartened in the One House budget that we went over the other day. The question was asked, what are we doing to incentivize these businesses? And the answer was, well, nothing really more than we've done in the past. We really need to keep these businesses afloat. We need to help them. Every new business that comes in is not a minority or woman-owned business. We have to keep that in mind. And we have to realize that these small businesses provide an economic opportunity for pretty much all of our family and friends in our entire community. And they are essential to doing that. And the reason they're closing, the reason they're leaving is because of the economic policies that we have. And as much as I hear the legislature complain that they don't like big business, all we really seem to be doing is incentivizing big business. And big business takes the money out of New York State. So I think we really need to pay a little bit more attention to small individually owned businesses. And then I would also like to speak a little bit about OCM and marijuana management policies. I have to point out that when we talk about this, we should be sure that we realize that we're talking about two different types of marijuana shops. There are illegal marijuana shops and there are legal marijuana shops. The illegal marijuana shops, as my colleague has just said, they're very difficult to close down, and we need to put a renewed emphasis on that. I'm not one who believes in the sale of marijuana to anyone. I don't think we should be making a profit as a state off of the vices of our citizens, but you know what? We do sell cigarettes, and we do sell alcohol. And if you consider the age limit that's required for a person to smoke or drink, we've been a failure as far as preventing younger people from smoking and drinking. So I don't know how we're going to prevent the same thing to happen when it comes to marijuana. So the only thing that comes to mind when I think about the rollout of cannabis shops brings me back to the days when we had off-track betting. We don't really seem to be in a good position or a good rollout here as far as legal cannabis sales are concerned. And as pointed out, we seem to be, at the moment, much more interested in shutting down a vendor who only buys marijuana from the state because the marijuana they purchased wasn't up to the code. And we're not really incentivizing the localities to go after illegal shops. We really need to put a focus on that. Thank you, Sis.
Well, the only other thing I'd like to mention is I forgot in my opening remarks to talk about the new Center of Excellence that we've included in our One House. RNA Research and Therapeutics, a combination of the University of Rochester and Albany. We look for great things from there. And then on the on-ramp program, while the governor's proposal has identified 4 particular sites along the thruway, I think we should look at this a little differently and look at using community colleges that already do this type of work and helping them with some operating funds, because we know they can do a lot more. So this spreads not just in those 4 centers, but also in other parts of the state. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Senator Ryan.
Well, thank you again to everybody for coming. The Senate and the Assembly look forward to working together with the executive to proceed to a final budget. Any further comments? Then we'll adjourn. Thank you so much, everybody.